right? But when there is a transition from the agricultural economy to the industrial economy, what's really happened? What's really occurred? So here we say, right, industrial revolution that began in the 18th century led to factories and managers who focused considerable energy on the organization of manufacturing processes. So that from the agricultural era to industrial economy, they invented this steam engine and locomotive, the railway engine like. And as a result, there are some cities, constructed because the railway systems was developed, and there are cities, the city centers came up. The huge people get together in these cities in huge numbers because they are employed by these factories and so on, right? And automation and the mechanization of the manufacturing process was the eminent factor in this sort of economy, right? So that any history of industrial development will recount numerous stories of entrepreneurs who changed processes and revolutionized the industry. So last week we discussed, right? So Henry Ford was one eminent example for us, right? And here we have in 1911, soon after the Henry Ford launched the Ford Motor Company, another American, Frederick Winslow Taylor, published a seminal book called Principles of Scientific Management. Here you have this seminal book of Principle of Scientific Management. Here you have the hyperlink of a paper, the HPR paper which I have adapted. If you wish, you can go through it, right? That gives the greater information on industrial revolution, what really has happened in that era, right? So in Taylor actually showed to capture some of the key ideas that good managers choose to improve processes. So what Frederick W. Taylor has done was he adapted some of the key ideas of good managers, right? Some of the key ideas that good managers use to improve their processes. Like he argued for simplification, right? So what Frederick Taylor suggested was, his argument was for the simplification of the production process with his time study for systematic experimentation to identify the best way of performing a task. He was pretty much concentrated on what is the best way for a laborer or an employee to conduct a task, and for the control system that measure and avoided output, so that based on this after adapting this best system, the best performance, the employees they are controlled, their performances are controlled, and their production is measured and rewarded based on the output. So number the reward may be given on the number of output they have in that manufacturing process line. So that was introduced by Frederick W. Taylor with his theory of scientific management, right? And then what happened? Another set of new technologies, right, have often led to new business processes, right? The introduction of the train and automobile, as I told you. So once the trains were developed, the locomotive engines came into play a role in the economy life. So really, what happened was, so there were city centers were started off constructing or developing. So because in these cities there were greater number of people who stay and do their economic activity, because they come to factories as employees and they get the salaries, and these their requirement, in order to fulfill their requirements, there are shops, all these other economic activities that take place, so that there are huge cities are started up, what you call that, evolving. And again with the automobile, what happens? So every household like is in position to get hold of their own motor car. So there is a mobility from one location to another for these families. And of radio, right? What really, what kind of a change the radio created in our society? Anyone? Yeah, Sainik, what kind of impact radio broadcasting done on us?
Radio, like it facilitated easy communication.
Yeah, very good. You know that earlier, before radio was introduced, so most probably people would have had these newspapers, right? So that is not the maybe some kind of a thousands of copies would have been circulated. But with the introduction of radio, what happens? For the whole nation, they could have take this message. For the communication, as you said, communication has been very easy, and again that reaches massive numbers, right? Millions of people can be targeted and carry out this communication. But one eminent disadvantage of this, that is that a two-way communication? No, that is a one-way communication, right? Only we can reach the listeners through our radio broadcasting, right? So then came the television, another massive development in human history, right? So that so instead of going for a movie in a cinema, so we started off having the entertainment staying behind at home, right? So now you know every household they do have a television. And again, if you have been to the what you call that, some European countries, right? So they started off using this television as a two-way communication medium, right? So they sometimes carry out you can book air tickets, sometimes holiday packages, and you can buy stuff, right? That kind of things could have been done with the now obviously with the digital television. Still, I haven't seen it in Sri Lanka, but most of the other countries make use of it, right, for the marketing purposes, right? That has changed a lot of things with regard to the civilization or the culture we have, right? And again, have which led to a new and improved business process. So that every development of that, right? These trains, automobiles, radio, telephone, television, etc., improved. They led to new and improved business processes. We all agree on that, right? So we have had new and improved business process. Since the end of World War II, end of World War II, computers and software systems have provided a major sort of new efficiencies. So by the end of Second World War, what happens is there were new way of new technologies, set of technologies we have, right? What is that? That is computers and software systems available, right? For us to provide major source of new efficiencies, right? Instead of these old typewriters, people started of using these computers, right? So all these tedious, monotonous typewriters, since these computers replaced by, the tedious, monotonous typewriters were replaced by the computers, what happens is there were greater efficiencies in office functions, right? Kind of a very huge improvement with regard to whatever the businesses and organization. So that's what we say. Computers and software systems have provided a major source of new efficiency. Then we have system perspective, right? In essence, the system perspective emphasize, right, that everything is connected to everything else, and that it's often worthwhile to model business and processes in terms of flows and feedback loops, right? So in general, right, in management, how do we identify a system? Yes, how do we identify a system? Anyone? What do you mean by system? Yeah, Danuka, what do you mean by system? This management perspective of it? Yes, what do you mean by a system? Anyone? So where we have that input and the process and the output, right? In management, that is how we identify a system, right? Here we go. We have input as what? We have human, financial, physical, and the information, like. So that we provide that input, and that process task is completed, right? Then we have the output as what? Finished goods, so services, profit and loss, employment, opportunities, etc. And there is a immediate feedback of the system from output to the input. So we can define it by saying a system is a set of interrelated and interdependent parts arranged in such a way that produces unified whole. I will tell it again. A system is a set of interrelated and interdependent parts arranged in such a way that produces unified whole life, right? In this system perspective, what happens is, here we say, many different trends led to the growing focus on system that began in 1960s. The system perspective was actually started in 1960s. Some derived from operations research, right, and studies of control systems. Some resulted from the emphasis on systems current in the computer community. Today's emphasis on system also arose out of the contemporary work in biology and social science. So that when it comes to this system, right, we pretty much often, right, we identify various systems in our body, right? So these are biological systems, like inhalation system, what you call that, the blood circulation system, right? So likewise, there are so many different systems in our body itself, right? We call them biological systems. Then we have the systems in social sciences, the marketing, maybe management, various other subjects. They have various different system perspectives we discussed, right? So earlier we have seen I have input, process and output. There is a management perspective of the system. At the same time, however, many management theorists have contributed to the system perspective, right? Who contributed to the system perspective? The many management theorists. One thing of earlier writers like Ludwig von Bartholdy and Stafford Beer and J.W. Forrester, and more recent management theorists like John D. Tierman and Peter M. Said. So they are the more prominent personalities that we can identify who wrote regarding the system perspective, or the in many of the management theories they contributed with, right? So now what we can do is, right, just think of this is the traditional management thinking we have regarding the system perspective. So what would be the business process, right? The system of business process line, right? So what do you think? Now before that, right, I'll give you a, let's say, okay, 20 minutes break for you to think of that, right? What would be the